Alright, now the first cheese we're going to make is called Queso Blanco. It's a very simple cheese, the very first cheese that I made, mainly because it only has 2 ingredients and doesn't require the use of any special equipment. Now, the recipe I found in this book, which I would highly recommend. I checked this out of the library originally, and then once I realized I liked it, I bought it off Amazon. It's called Home Cheese Making. The recipe is for Queso Blanco, which is Spanish for white cheese. This is a great cheese to start off with, like I mentioned, because it only has 2 ingredients: milk and vinegar. I use apple cider vinegar now. First one I did, I just used white vinegar. You can strain this into a colander. You can strain it into cheesecloth, would be best, obviously. You can use a clean t-shirt. You can use a clean towel. You don't necessarily even have to strain it. You can press it if you want to. If you want it to a nice round shape, you don't have to do that either. You can just drain it and let it form into a ball. The great thing about this cheese, or I should say the interesting thing about this cheese, is that it doesn't melt. It'd be a great cheese for cubing up for your parties. It's a great cheese to use in salads. You can also fry it. You can actually put it on the stove and in some oil, and it'll brown, but it won't melt. It's great stuff. But anyway, like I said, all it calls for is 1 gallon of milk and 1/4 cup of vinegar per gallon. Now I've got 2 gallons of milk right here, so I'm going to make a rather large cheese for it because we have a party coming up that we need the cheese for. But the first thing you do is get the milk on the stove top and then heat it up to 185 degrees. Again, if you have a thermometer, that's great, but here's the interesting thing about milk. 185 degrees is the temperature at which milk starts to foam on top. So if you don't have a thermometer, just heat it until it starts to foam on top, and you'll know you're ready for step 2. Alright, well, our milk has come up to about 190 degrees. I overshot the mark a little bit, but I wasn't paying attention. It's gotten foamy on top, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add, very slowly, we're going to add the vinegar. A little bit at a time. And something amazing is going to start happening. And as we add this, let's see, it looks like it's curdling, which is exactly what it's doing. If you ever accidentally added some acid to anything that's got milk in it, you'll know when it curdles. That's where we get the word curds from. Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey. Well, milk separates into curds and whey, and that's what all we're doing right now. You can see it's starting to lump up. Those lumps may look unappetizing, but that is cheese right there. Oh, see how that yellow liquid is starting to form on top? Let you know that the curds are starting to sink to the bottom. We'll stir this a little bit longer, and then you could scoop this out with a slotted spoon if you don't have a colander. If you don't have any cheesecloth, that would be a perfectly acceptable way to get your cheese out, to get your curds out. I'm going to put mine through a colander with some cheesecloth though. Alright, we're going to get our hot curds and whey, and we're going to pour them through a colander. Nothing fancier than that. Now this colander I have lined with a cheesecloth, a special cheesecloth called Plyband. It's actually a plastic cheesecloth. We'll talk more about that later. Alright, well there's our bowl of curds. I'm going to go ahead and salt it at this point to give it some extra flavor. So I'm going to use probably the neighborhood of a tablespoon of salt per gallon. That sounds like a lot. But again, we're going to press this cheese, and most of that salt is going to come back out, or at least some of that salt is going to come back out. Alright, we got our salt in there, and while it's still hot, I'm going to try to break these curds back up again and give it a good stir. Get that salt all worked in there. When curds are hot, they want to reform back into a solid mass, which is good when you're about ready to press. There's no danger of this stuff cooling off anytime soon, so I don't have to work that quickly. We've got our hot steaming curds, our salt all mixed in, and I'm not even going to put cheesecloth in these containers. I'm simply going to ladle in the cheese and then put the lids on top and press them. Alright, well that does it. I've got these 2 cans full of all of the hot curds. Try to get it smashed down on top just to get a little bit level. Now, all we're going to do now is put our lids on. Again, these are just the can lids that came off the containers in the first place. Now I have them in a pie pan, so it'll collect all of the runoff. And I've got a little indentation here on the side so that the runoff come onto the floor where the dogs can then lick it up, obviously. Or you could put a drain pan down there. Now, simply put a weight on top. Any kind of weight will do. I've got beef broth and corn. Those make nice weights. And then we'll probably put another piece of weight across the top of here in just a second. Alright, here we go. Nothing says weight like cast iron. So, I'm going to let this sit for an hour or so. And then by that point, most of the liquid will have been pressed out. I'm going to check them, probably flip them, which means taking the cheese out, flipping it over, put it back in, repress it for maybe another hour, and then put them in the refrigerator overnight. Now, you can press it for as long or as short as you want. The recipe doesn't call for pressing it at all. The recipe calls for draining it for 12 hours. But of course, pressing is the same as draining, only more quickly. And I'm a man, if I can use more power to do something faster, I'm going to. So, we'll come back and check on these in a little bit. Alright, well, it's been about an hour. I'm going to take off the weights. And we're going to see what we've got. Alright. Give it a little push. And there you've got cheese. Now, it's still hot. You can see it hasn't really knitted together all that well yet. So we're going to flip it over. We're going to put it back in. And we're going to put the weights back on top of it. Alright, it's been another hour, so we're going ahead and take the cheese out and take a look at it. Let's take our weight off. Take our 2 weights off. Take one of our cheeses out. Punch her out. And there we have a wheel of cheese. Now, if this wasn't going to be used for the ladies' high tea at church next Saturday, I would go ahead and wax this and put it in to age a little bit. But this cheese can be used almost immediately. Now, it's still a little bit on the spongy side. You know, it might could stand to be pressed for maybe overnight, or again, you could hang it overnight. But I'm going to go ahead and stop for now. But anyway, here's our first cheese, Queso Blanco, which literally means white cheese, which it certainly is. All equipment you need: some milk, some vinegar, a tin can. Good luck. Alright, here's Nick demonstrating our new human zone gate, our new cow gate. You close the gate, and that keeps Mo out of areas we don't want Mo to be. That way they can stay inside there to their heart's content, and we don't have to worry about them knocking over our compressor or getting into their food bucket, which is back there, which contains Mo's special food, or rather Doe's special food, the sweet feed dairy food. Thank you, Nick.